Welcome to week 14 of the NFL season. I'm your host, Jeff Ratcliffe, with the War Room powered by Pro Football Focus, brought to you by DraftKings.com. It's week 14. Like I said, it's the fantasy playoffs. We are ready to roll. Lots going on. Strange things happening. Who would have thought that Sean Drone and Tim Hightower would be fantasy relevant? But that's exactly what we're seeing. And, of course, with me this week, Pat Thorman. Pat, we were just talking. We are both crawling to the finish line. My voice is shot. I am on the probable side of questionable, but I am not feeling well this morning. But I think come 1 o'clock, I'll start to feel a little bit better, hopefully. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. Scrambling this morning. The wife was sick last night, and so I'm wrestling the little guy all morning and trying to keep up with all this news that's coming in. But I think we're updated and ready to go and hope get some people on to the next round of the playoffs.
Yeah, we are updated, and we're getting some weird updates. And I think maybe we'll key on a couple of these running back situations first to start things off today. And obviously, New Orleans and Philadelphia are probably the two biggest, although Denver also makes the list. And, you know, the tight end situation in New England. But let's go one by one here. And you're looking at the New Orleans running backs, and we get the news here this morning that Tim Hightower is going to be more he's the starter, whatever that means. I mean, I don't put much weight into who actually is in the first play of the game. But we do have to pay attention here because C.J. Spiller obviously has disappointed. Now we're getting news that he's not going to be on the roster next year, potentially. I mean, that's not a huge surprise. But I know a lot of people rushed out to pick him up when the Mark Ingram news went down this week. So how are you approaching this? I mean, do you have shares of these guys in season long? What are your thoughts on daily this week with this New Orleans Saints backfield?
I made a couple of lineups with some cheap running backs to kind of pack the more expensive receivers in, and Hightower has made his way into there, you know, along with Jones from Washington, but. It's tough to trust Spiller. I mean, we've seen it all year. We were waiting for him to break out, and he's just not doing it. And with the matchup, that's a better matchup for their passing game anyway. And you know, the Bucs have been stopping the run pretty well lately, so I can't imagine that the Saints are really going to be pounding it repeatedly. So I'm looking at Hightower as kind of an RB3, just because of the uncertainty, and Spiller is pretty much a Hail Mary in PPR, just because, like I said, it's just so uncertain at this point.
Yeah, it's a rough situation. The Eagles' running back situation isn't much better, especially if you're a DeMarco Murray owner. You know, on the Sirius show this morning, Mike and I were both kicking around the idea of ranking Murray outside of our top 40. That's how bad things have gotten, but obviously that means opportunities here for Darren Sproles and potentially for Ryan Matthews. So what are your thoughts on these guys today?
Yeah, well, Sproles got a ton of work last week, and you know, with the matchup against the Bills, you know, you're going to want them to be throwing quick passes, and so he should be involved there. But you know, last time Murray was out, Ryan Matthews had over 50% of the snaps. I think it was against the Jets, and he turned in a pretty good game. So he's definitely a guy that, if you're in a pinch roster-wise, if you throw it, throw a Hail Mary his way. I have him over Hightower, I believe, just because the matchup's a little better. The Bills haven't been stopping the run since they lost Kyle Williams, and that game's going to be more up in pace than the Tampa game because you figure Tampa Bay is going to try to pound it. So I'm more bullish on Matthews and Sproles than I am on Hightower and Spiller.
All right, so what about this Patriots tight end situation? Do you have any idea what's going on here? I mean, it sounds like Chandler may not play. Gronkowski available if they need him. You know, how do we make sense of this? Are you fading these guys all together? I mean, season long, this has some big implications. We know some people have been relying on Chandler here. He's put up some decent numbers. Then you look at Gronkowski. Obviously, if he's on the field, he's the best tight end option out there. So what do you do here, especially season long?
Well, I mean, it's complicated because it's a night game, and there's not a whole lot of pivots. I guess Will Tye tomorrow night, Ryan Griffin in the same game tonight. Neither one of them are especially appetizing, although Tye does have some sneaky potential this week, but he's obviously not on the same plane as a Gronkowski. I would be surprised if Gronkowski plays. I mean, this is a team that wants to get healthy, and whether they play an extra game or they get a bye, I think they like their chances a lot better if they get fully healthy. You look at Donta Hightower, there was a chance he would play last week, but he was inactive. He's inactive again this week. I think they want to get healthy. And I don't think they're going to put Gronkowski out there today. That's just my take. I'm not based on anything that I heard specifically. Chandler is tough to depend on. I was surprised as anyone when it said he's on the actual questionable side of questionable and not just the typical Patriots listing. Everyone is questionable. So maybe Asante Cleveland gets a little bit of work today if both of them are out tonight. Excuse me. So yeah, it's tough to rely on. I wish I had some huge insight for it, but I'm as just in the dark as everybody else.
Yeah, it's a rough situation. I think that as much as you would love to see Gronkowski out there as a Gronkowski owner, you kind of have to go elsewhere this week. I mean, week 14, and folks, we get it. Like, yes, it's a must. Every week is a must-win situation as far as I'm concerned in fantasy football because you're playing 13 weeks in a regular season, and then obviously you have your sudden death. We get it. You have to win. We know it. You don't want to risk here, though. So probably going safer is better. There's lots of tight end options. You even mentioned somebody like Will Tye, who you can get away with. That's certainly a play that I don't mind making. He's Larry Donnell plus. I mean, basically, and that's not the worst thing in the world. It's a tight end too, but sometimes that's all you really need at this point in the season. So, all right, we're starting to get some inactive news coming in here, but we also have questions from George. George is asking in a half-point PPR. He has T.J. Yeldon, Charkandrick West, and Darren McFadden. Pat, where are you going with that one in a half-point PPR?
I'm on Yeldon today. I know there's a lot of buzz around the Jaguars passing game, for good reason. I guess Greg Toller's out today as well. So, but the Colts haven't been able to stop the run pretty much since Anderson went down. And Yeldon got some looks down near the goal line for the first time this season, really. I think he had 3 inside the 5. He scored on a goal line carry. And you'd expect him to stay relevant all game long. He does catch passes, so even if Indy does get up, Yeldon's is going to stay in the game plan. West is tough. I mean, he's going to split with Ware, and he doesn't get the goal line touches in that split. And McFadden is, at this point, he's tough to rely on. I do have him behind Yeldon, and I think I have him behind West as well.
See, I actually have him ahead. I have him as my number one out of those guys, and I guess it's the volume issue that I'd be looking at. But Yeldon, you could also make that claim. They're very close. They really are. I'm not buying into the McFadden fading narrative. It's just the offense is what it is at this point. You flip a coin here. I guess, I mean, if I want to break ties, I'll break ties with the same thing that I say all along. I've been saying it since back in August. I like younger players at this time of the year. So I would agree, if you're going to go for that angle, you go Yeldon. I wouldn't fault McFadden as a play here, but I think Yeldon probably offers the highest ceiling. So I agree with that. He has an IDP question he mentions. Ricardo Allen, he says I didn't rank him. Yeah, I didn't rank him. I mean, you take DB 15 to DB 60, and they're basically the same guy to me. High ceiling, low floor, that's what they are. So, yeah, I didn't rank him. I'm not concerned. If you want somebody who has a higher floor, Isa Abdul Quddus. Say it with me. Isa Abdul Quddus. That's your guy. I think he's a DB1, a back-end DB1 going forward here. Really like Abdul Quddus. And I noticed you don't mention him here. You said, George, Ricardo Allen, Goldson, or Coleman. Coleman's production is interceptions. Don't want to rely on that. Goldson actually has the highest tackle floor/ceiling, so I would go with him. And he says, thanks for the advice. He's 10-3. Pat, I don't know about you, but I take all the credit for that.
That's all yours.
put me and Pat on the trophy and just ship us our 10% at the end of the season. But good luck to you, George. We really appreciate the consistent showing up and all that. Long time watcher, listener, whatever you want to call them. So anyway, let's get into some of the inactive news that is coming across the board. We at least have this Philadelphia game, I see. I'm getting a bunch of them in now, but let's go to the Bills side of the ball. Nigel Bradham inactive. That's no big surprise. We'll see Manny Lawson probably playing every down today. So in deep leagues, LB4 plus value there. Carlos Williams out, and that's really where I want to key in on, Pat. LeSean McCoy has been playing better. We have revenge narrative, all the fun stuff here. So what are your thoughts on McCoy for today?
Oh, yeah, I mean, he's my RB1 this week. narrowly over Doug Martin. I mean, the Eagles haven't been stopping the run lately. They haven't been stopping anything lately. And I'm not usually buying into the revenge game narrative or any narrative for the most part, but Rex Ryan lives for this kind of thing. So they get the ball down on the goal line. I'm pretty sure he's going to be handing it to McCoy, especially now with Carlos Williams out. So I think he stands a great chance of scoring a touchdown. He's been a little more involved in the passing game than pretty much anyone predicted at the beginning of the season under Greg Roman. So yeah, no, he's full go. If you have him, you're playing him, and he's going to be pretty chalky in DFS. You can diversify opponent with Tyrod Taylor. It should be an up and pace game and lots of points, and wheels up on McCoy.
Every game is really a revenge game. You look to the other side. Is it a revenge game for Jason Peters? I guess I don't know. Anyway, though, yeah, I love McCoy. Top 2 consensus play, absolutely, with him and Doug Martin. Doug Martin, boy, oh boy, I like Doug Martin today, though. That New Orleans defense is a sieve. We go to the Eagles side of the ball. Nothing really standing out here, in terms of inactive, actives. We talked about the running back situation. All the running backs are active. DeMarco Murray expected to be the number 4 today, behind Kenjon Barner. So that's strange things are happening, but you certainly have that there. So let's shift to the San Francisco 49ers at your Cleveland Browns. And we look here, Aaron Lynch going to be inactive with that concussion. It would look like a really good matchup for him for big play leagues, IDP. Not going to happen. Michael Wilhoit inactive. That means we're going to get a full look at Gerald Hodges. I was asked a few times this week, would you roll the dice on Gerald Hodges? My answer has been no, and the reason why is we just don't know if he's going to see sub-package snaps. If he does, hey, that's great, but I don't want to roll the dice in Week 14 on a guy like that. It's more, let's take this as an opportunity where we can watch this guy and see if he has potential dynasty value. We go to the Cleveland side, though, and, Pat, I think the Cleveland offense is pretty interesting. San Francisco and Cleveland are interesting. So we have Sean Drone. We have potentially a value DFS play in Anquan Boldin. And we look to the other side of the ball, and I guess your general thoughts about the Cleveland offense. So why don't you hit up this game?
Sure. I have Menzel. I think he's my QB 20. Just he's still in. He's still in consideration. He's a guy who has big play potential. I think the last time he was out against Pittsburgh, he almost scored on a long run. Benjamin's active, so that gives him the deep threat. Barnage is having a great season, obviously. And one thing I worry about with Cleveland is it's one of those teams that are circling the drain. The coaching staff, the general manager, and you get down in the game, even especially to the 49ers. If you're down a couple scores to them, do they pack it in? How does that look? It could turn into a pretty big dumpster fire. But I do like Sean Drone on the other side. Speaking of narrative revenge game, because he's one of the 6 teams he's played for is Cleveland. I think they were the last team he was on their roster. So yeah, love Drone. And you mentioned Bolden. I like him as well. I think he's a sneaky cash game play. He's been getting plenty of looks with Gabbert back there, and he's super cheap. So I think there's more goodness here than you would look at. It would stand out at first glance. But at the same time, to get too heavy into Cleveland, especially their running game, is kind of risky.
5,900 for Anquan Boldin on FanDuel really stands out to me because this is a week where you can save potentially a quarterback. You can go with Tyrod Taylor. That's not bad. I think 7,500 is his price on FanDuel. You maybe spend up at one of the running backs, so you go McCoy or Martin, and then you can spend up at wide receiver. You can get an Antonio Brown in your lineup. You can get somebody like Brandon Marshall even at a little over 8,000. I don't know his price off the top of my head, and then throw Boldin in there, and you can still get a tight end. And I think that's a great cash game lineup. I mean, basically saying my cash game lineup to everybody right now, but it's not bad at all, and I think you have a nice high floor there. Now, obviously, for GPP, you want to go in a different direction, but not bad with Anquan Boldin. Drone, very interesting, so fascinating that here we are in Week 14, and I have Sean Drone ranked as a back-end running back 1. That just blows my mind what's taken place this season. But that is fantasy football. Let's move to the Titans and Jets. And looking here, Kendall Wright going to be inactive. And Darrelle Revis, I'm not actually seeing him listed at all, so I guess he's active.
He is active.
Yeah, he's not even listed, so active. That means he's probably going to be on Dorial Green Beckham. Not the week to go with Green Beckham, but Pat, during the Roto Grinders show this week, I had mentioned that I liked Delanie Walker, and Brett Devine, our host, said, really? Against the Jets? And I think it deserves attention because, yeah, really, against the Jets. Over the last 5 weeks, the Jets are the number 32 matchup. Pat, I don't know if you know this, but there are 32 teams in the NFL.
I've heard that.
32 matchup for tight ends, but I still like Delanie Walker. So I'm curious your thoughts here. Am I completely off my rocker?
Not at all. I wrote Delanie Walker up in advanced matchup plays on Roto Grinders this week, and I think the fact that the Jets are traditionally tough on tight ends, at least this year, will keep some attention off them. They haven't played that many tight ends. Gronkowski got him for over 100 yards and a touchdown. We know obviously that's Gronk, but they're a team that blitzes a lot. Delanie Walker is Mariota's by far most targeted receiver against the blitz. And he's a guy who's gotten a ton of work lately, and then they're going to have a tough time running on the Jets, and they're not going to be throwing in Dorial Green Beckham's direction with Revis on him. So, I mean, by process of elimination, if Walker doesn't get double-digit touchdowns, double-digit targets, I will be surprised.
Double-digit touchdowns would definitely be awesome. I might have to put some GPP lineups in now just to be safe, but yeah, I would be surprised as well. The chemistry's certainly there. Mariota's he's a good football player. I'm excited to see this kid in the future. And the thing about him, Pat, I don't know if you watch Inside the NFL, but they highlighted him. Just a nice guy, and it's so good to see that. Genuinely nice, not fake nice, not putting on a show for the cameras nice, just a genuinely nice dude and a good football player at that. And I'm glad that we saw the big play finally happen out of Marcus Mariota.
Yeah, one more thing on this game is the Jets and Titans blitz at the second and third highest rate in the league, and the Jets and Titans are top 5 in 20-plus yard offensive plays over the last 5 weeks. So, with a lot of blitzing going on and some big play talent in that game, I think it's got a little more juice in this game than it kind of first appears.
Yeah, and keep in mind, Derek Morgan not going to play in this game, so that's an edge presence for the Titans that will be sorely missed. They're going to be relying on B.W. Webb today. Sounds like he should be writing children's books somewhere, but B.W. Webb on Brandon Marshall, that's pretty juicy. I like that one. That's tasty. We could see double-digit targets, certainly, potentially for both Marshall and Decker. Decker coming off that nice game last week where he set his season high for yards. So, hey, get in on these guys. Pat, I guess one other thing out of this game, I'm getting a lot of questions on it. Chris Ivory, Bilal Powell. I mean, how are you making sense of these two guys?
Well, I mean, Ivory at home as a favorite has been super productive, so that's definitely a feather in his cap. Titans have been playing pretty decent run defense lately, though. So it might, and Powell's gotten a little more run since he's gotten healthy. So it's not as big of a slam dunk on Ivory as it was the first half of the year, say. But I think Ivory's a guy who, in this matchup with this projected game script, you kind of got to roll with him if you have him in season long.
Yeah, I do agree with you there. And we know that potentially, even just a 2-down roll, he's got RB1 upside, obviously. You look at John's question here. John's asking C.J. Spiller or Giovanni Bernard in a PPR, and then also PPR flex, Des Bryant or T.J. Yeldon. Pat, I think this is pretty easy for me. I'm going Bernard and Yeldon here. What are your thoughts?
I agree. I think this is kind of a Bernard game, kind of in the Vereen game kind of vernacular. The Steelers have been really good against the run. I think that it's going to be a passing game on both sides, but more so for Cincinnati. And Bernard's been a lot more involved in the closer games over the last, say, month and a half. In the blowouts, he's been pretty uninvolved. But I mean, he's a guy who's worn down over the course of the season the last couple of years. So it's probably smart of them. Yeldon over Dez. It's tough to trust Dez. I love Dez, as much as the next guy. But with Castle throwing on the ball, it's kind of just you're throwing darts.
Yeah, and let's be clear here with Dez. Back end wide receiver too. I mean,
I think I'm like 21 or 22.
Yeah. So I mean, I've been asked some questions so far this week. Somebody on Facebook hit me up, and it was like, I think he was asking like Tyler Lockett, players like that. Which of course the ceiling's high. But I was like, you start Dez, and he's like, you just blew my mind, and I don't see how that's mind-boggling whatsoever. It's Dez Bryant. I mean, yeah, I could be throwing Dez Bryant the ball, and you're still going to start him over a wide receiver three. It's just, don't get too cute here, and especially at this point in the season, we know what Dez Bryant is, even with Matt Castle under center. He's still Dez Bryant, so don't get too crazy. Welcome to the chat here, Alex. Alex asking, is Rodgers a bad play this week? Is it crazy to start Ryan Tannehill or Brian Hoyer over him, Pat? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a little bit aggressive. I mean, I don't think he's a top three play. Some people have him top five, but Dallas, does play slow. That'll cut down on his opportunities. But the Packers run over 50% no huddle at home versus I think 17 on the road. So they're going to try to pick up the pace a little bit. Tannehill is kind of an interesting spot. It's with the Giants. I think that has a potential to be a high-scoring game. But if you look at their game plan last week on the new offensive coordinator, they barely threw the ball. So if they do stick with that, I mean, I'm big on Lamar Miller this week. If they stick with that, Tannehill's opportunities are going to be down, and Hoyer is mid to back end QB2.
Yeah, I exactly right there is where I have Hoyer. Not relying on Ryan Tannehill. I mean, they 19 pass attempts last week out of this offense, and you look to Lamar Miller though. Hopefully they continue to have a commitment to the run. I think Lamar Miller is a really nice GPP play this week. I don't know if I would want to rely on him for cash game purposes, but GPP, fire it up. I want as much of that Steelers game as possible in GPPs this week. If I can get Ben Roethlisberger, Antonio Brown, Martavis Bryant, and AJ Green in my lineup, I am a happy individual. At least I am before 1 o'clock. We'll see what happens after the game starts today. Usually it goes up in flames, You think, Pat, I don't know about you, I always have wishful thinking with these lineups. Oh, this is the greatest lineup, and then it does not.
So confident at 1 o'clock.
Yes. But confidence is part of this game. So moving along, and guys, if you're in the hangout itself and you want some questions asked, we have about 7 minutes left in the show. So make sure you get those in here. Looking to the Seahawks and the Ravens, and boy, oh boy, Pat. Yeah. So Jimmy Clausen and a former staffer of ours, Scott Spratt, is, I guess, Jimmy Clausen's biggest fan. So, Scott, you got your wish. You got 2 Jimmy Clausen starts this season. Dust off that Carolina jersey and fire it up.
Both against Seattle.
I don't know. And 2 against Seattle. I don't know if we can fire up any part of this offense as much as I like how Buck Allen played last week. That's tough. Kamar Aiken, can see Sherman. I mean, are you relying on any of these guys at all, even in season long?
No, I mean, like you said, Aiken gets Sherman, he's out of the question. All they have to really worry about at that point is Buck Allen. Max Williams is back this week. They have no other tight ends that are healthy that I think that have played in the league, basically. And Seattle has given up some to tight ends this year. So, I mean, that's a super, super dart throw there. But, yeah, I mean, I like the game on the other side. I do like Tyler Lockett, stacked with the Seattle defense. So because you figure Baltimore is going to be punting, Lockett's going to get a few chances to return some punts. You can double dip there with the points. But the question with me is how long they're going to be throwing the ball. I mean, the way to attack Baltimore's defense is through the air. But if game script goes that they're up, 2-3 scores by halftime, how many second half passes is Russell Wilson going to throw?
Yeah, exactly. It's a tricky situation. I think Thomas Rawls obviously is a premier play this week, though. Love seeing what this kid has done, and Seattle, kudos to them. They found him. And look like they have a running back for the future here. So if you have him in dynasty leagues like I do in the staff league, you're probably sitting pretty. By the way, just a little update, the staff playoffs. Pat, did you make the playoffs?
I missed the playoffs. Romo, Dez, it all went to hell.
Yeah, I'm sitting with a bye. I'm very, very fortunate. I won this league a couple years ago, and it's a very tough league, obviously hyper competitive. We have some of the most active owners. And people very creatively use their injured reserve in this league, but fun league. We'll give some updates as we go through. Me and Tyler Lochner, we have the buys here, but either way, moving along. And guys, like I said, if you have any questions, certainly get them in here as we come down the stretch. We talked about Steelers, Bengals, pretty much nothing of surprise here. Tyler Eifert. Ready to roll and back in the lineup, so do like him. We have the Colts-Jaguars game as well. Nobody's standing out on the Indianapolis side. Greg Toller is going to be inactive, by the way, so that's even better for the wide receivers. Maybe we start there. Blake Bortles, the wide receivers. How are you feeling about these guys? Can Allen Robinson follow up that massive performance? Allen Hurns back in the mix. What do you think about these guys today?
Yeah, Robinson saved my bacon last week. I had him in my cash lineups that were kind of uneven, but he saved me. So thank you, Allen Robinson. But Hurns wasn't playing last week, so he got those goal line or those red zone looks that he converted. That he might get one or two less this week. So I think his ceiling's a little bit lower. More people are on him now after last week. His price was up. I think it's 8,000 on FanDuel. So he might see, Vontae Davis. Vontae Davis isn't what he was last year, but it's still a prohibitive matchup. So I think Hurns is certainly interesting. We discussed Yeldon. I like Yeldon, and I think Julius Thomas. He's been getting a lot more work over the last 3 weeks. So I definitely think that Jaguars offense is viable, and I think the Colts can score. I think Pusluzny's out. So that brings Gore into play a little bit. And that's a defense that hasn't given up anything on the ground lately. But if you throw some cracks there, it can snowball, and this might have some more points than we're used to seeing.
Yeah, we'll see Jordy Tripp playing out there, and be careful, IDP folks. It doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be a 3-down guy. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Thurston Armbrister, and I'm not making that name up. Thurston Armbrister playing every down. He's been starting, but with Dan Skuta banged up, but not playing every down, obviously, with Pusluzny out there. But interesting matchup, certainly, and we'll see if Gore can get it done there. Joseph has a question. He's asking about 3 running backs in a PPR, half point PPR, and he says Charizard. I don't know if that's Charkandrick. I'm guessing against San Diego it would have to be. That's a new nickname I've never heard before, or it's an autocorrect fail. But Buck Allen, Todd Gurley, Ryan Matthews, Jeremy Hill, and he needs 3. Pat, I'm going to go West, Gurley, and actually I'm going to go Matthews. I think that's an intriguing play this week just because I'm so scared of Buck Allen against this defense. I love Buck Allen, but not today. We could see a shutout. Again, it would not shock me the least bit. And Jeremy Hill, we just talked about, game script doesn't necessarily favor him in this one. So what do you think here?
Yeah, I agree with Hill. I mean, Hill, you're just kind of hoping that they pass their way down to the 5-yard line and he punches one in, and that's something that you really want to rely on. Gurley's a lock here. West should get enough volume even in the split in a great matchup against San Diego. And so, like you say, it comes down to Buck and Matthews, and yeah, I think you roll with Matthews in this one. You really don't want to mess with Seattle's defense. They might only run 50 plays, and then you're not going to run up. And there goes his volume asset. So yeah, Matthews, Gurley, and West.
Yeah, and that's Joseph's retort here is that 13 targets for Buck Allen. Yeah, that was last week. This week he goes up against Seattle. So, and he also has Jimmy Clausen in there, not Matt Schaub. And Matt Schaub, for as much maligned as he is he's a professional quarterback. He knows what he's doing. He's not great at it, but he runs the offense in a Josh McCown kind of way. Jimmy Clausen is not that. Jimmy Clausen is best suited with an earpiece and a clipboard. So yeah, you got that going for you. So it's tough. I love Buck Allen, but and I never thought we'd say this. Tim Hightower, Sean Jerome, and Matt Schaub, please get back on the field. That's the present state of things, and obviously we are now at 12 o'clock. That means we're done. Me and Pat have to go click buttons for the next hour. So best of luck to everybody. Boy, oh boy, this is crazy fun stuff, Week 14. Win, 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 baby. And we'll be back next week. Hopefully you'll all be back with us for Week 15, the semifinals of the fantasy playoffs. So for Pro Football Focus, he's Pat and I'm Jeff, and that's a wrap.